Weird, it's not letting me actually showing the videos. That's kind of strange. I was using it earlier and it seemed to work, so I don't know what's going on. Oh, yep, it's working. Perfect. So there's a dashboard on the, see there, that's what I was afraid of. So there's in case you've never done this, there is a YouTube control panel when you go live, a live control panel, and it's got a bunch of weird, funky settings on it. So trying to view, there's a viewer, and when you pipe it in, so basically what I have to do is I have to start live in the Zoom feed, and there's a particular way you set that up, and then it sends the feed to YouTube, and then you have to start it on the YouTube side. And the YouTube manager, there's like this little window that shows you if the stream's coming through, and then you can open up a separate YouTube, the native YouTube window that it comes through to see if it's also live, and they're not matching right now, so I was a little bit concerned, but looks like we're good to go. So I'm gonna let it roll for just a few minutes and give some people the time to tune in, and then we'll start off with some questions. I'll kind of do an intro, and then I'll just go around questions that we hopefully already saw. Hopefully have some good answers too. All right. I think we're ready. So for those of you guys out in TV land, hopefully everybody that is tuned in to the YouTube channel here is receiving the feed. If you're not receiving the feed, well, I guess you're not here to tell me you're not receiving the feed. You won't know that, but I'm Gabe Mounds. I'm here to introduce the Air Force Space Accelerator program. And I have some of my colleagues here who run the program as part of this experiment in virtual streaming or streaming a virtual panel regarding this program. So I want to thank the guys at MITRE, some of the folks I know over there who put together this opportunity to do sort of a virtual day of sessions to replace and to kind of contend with, mitigate the fact that South by Southwest and a lot of those events associated with South by Southwest got canceled due to the coronavirus. So shout out to those guys, in particular, my friend Dan Ward and my other colleague over there, Deborah, who them and their team have set this up. So I've been able to watch a few of the programs or the sessions earlier in the day, and I think this is going awesome. What you probably have heard in those other sessions is that each of us that have put together this kind of quick virtual event activity, we're all using different technology to figure out how to pull this off. So for us here, I am trying to, I had to go through a process to figure out how to use a webinar, a virtual meeting capability, and then have that streamed. So we're using YouTube, using in particular, the AFRL New Mexico YouTube channel to stream this. And like I said, hopefully people can see this panel live. But the underlying engine for us to connect to each other and I'm not making an endorsement per se, but I'll just say it. We're using Zoom, and I think it's going well. At least it's going well on my computer. So welcome everybody, and I guess we'll start around. So the Air Force Space Accelerator Program is a program that I lead out of the Air Force Research Lab based in New Mexico. And we're running a lot of activities, but mainly 2 accelerators between Albuquerque and Colorado Springs. And so quickly, I just want to introduce to you the other members of the team here. So I guess, and here's another fun fact. I don't know how each of my colleagues are seeing the screen. So I don't know if their screen shots are arranged in the same manner I am. In my screen, I'm on the upper right-hand corner. Is that what you guys see?
You're right in the main. You're right in the middle for us.
Okay. So I guess it depends on how each of the folks has it arranged. So I'll just go over, we'll start with Roger Anderson, Captain Roger Anderson, Air Force captain, who is my right-hand man basically and running this operation. So I just wanted to give him a few minutes to introduce himself.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Roger Anderson. I've been out at AFRL for about 2 years now and running the accelerator programs out at the research labs for at least the last year. But very excited to be working this capacity and all the engagement opportunities it provides us to reach out to startup companies and those running very fast, bringing very innovative technologies.
Awesome, thanks, Roger. I should note, so Roger is an active duty Air Force member, and I am a Air Force civilian working this program. And then we have our private sector colleagues who are helping us actually run the 2 accelerators between Colorado and New Mexico. So I'd like to introduce Camargue Artman, who is the director for the Catalyst Space Accelerator, and I'll give her a few minutes to introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you, Gabe. Like Gabe said, my name is Camargue Artman. I live in Colorado Springs, and I run the Catalyst Space Accelerator. It's an exciting program. We operate on a in-residence basis. Companies come every other week and join the program to be able to deliver technologies that fit a gap for DoD. And so I'm excited to tell you more about the accelerator as we move forward. Thanks, Gabe.
Thanks, Kamar. And last but certainly not least is my colleague over at an outfit here in Albuquerque called ABQ ID. They're our local accelerator here. Recently, they have been connected, and I could let Roxanne explain it a little bit more, but they run out of one of our universities here in Albuquerque, Central New Mexico University. So I'll introduce Roxanne Aragon, who is leading the Hyperspace Accelerator here in Albuquerque. You're muted. You're muted. Muted.
What a rookie move. Sorry. All right. Thanks for calling that out quickly. I should have done better. I'm Roxanne Aragon. I'm the program director with Hyperspace Challenge here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We run a combination of virtual and in-person program that focuses on customer discovery. We'll talk about that a bit more. But yeah, like Gabe mentioned, we're in partnership with, I work also for a nonprofit here in the community that focuses on entrepreneurship and workforce development, CNM Ingenuity, and ABQ ID. So we try to not add to the alphabet soup that you find in the acronyms that you have in the government, but sometimes we do it ourselves too. So thanks for having us here today, Gabe. Excited to talk more about the program.
Awesome, thanks, Roxanne. So another little tidbit for those of you in virtual land to try to make this a little bit interesting. You'll notice that behind my colleagues is a picture of a map. Each of them has a map. At the end of this discussion, we'll see if we understand what the significance of that is. I don't have a map, as you can see, so maybe that helps you understand that I'm the moderator. Also, we're all kind of wearing our colors, right? So apologies, Kamar. I have my Catalyst t-shirt. I should have asked you to wear your Catalyst t-shirt. Today, since I'm the moderator, I'm wearing my AFWorks t-shirt. I can go put it on real quick if you want me to put the Catalyst on to represent the colors there. We probably need to make a Catalyst / Hyperspace t-shirt, right? That'd be funny. But I wanted to, I guess, start off with the questions that that I kind of sent out ahead of time, just to get everybody's take on what we're doing here. So I'm going to start with Camargue. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Catalyst Space Accelerator?
Yeah, gladly. So the Catalyst Accelerator, Space Accelerator, located at Catalyst campus in Colorado Springs, Colorado, launched our first accelerator back in January of 2016. We work with AFR-LRV, who sends us a problem statement, and then we do a nationwide, sometimes global search for companies that have a solution to that problem statement. We down select, and then we get to 8 awesome companies, and we invite them to join us in Colorado Springs every other week for 12 weeks to work on several things. One of them is we try to help beef up their business by bringing in subject matter experts and industry experts that can talk to them about their business, talk to them about their technology. We also bring in as many as many stakeholders, users within DoD and the commercial world, so that they can vet their technology, potentially find partners or someone that would want to buy their technology. And then we also work on networking. So we usually have a community day, and we wrap up the whole event with a demo day. And we invite the community out to see what kind of companies we've brought into the accelerator. So our first accelerator was focused on terrestrial weather. Next, we did PNT, resilient commercial space communications, space-based ISR, and currently we're focused on data fusion for space domain awareness. And our companies are usually, we've had quite a range, but I think ideally we're looking for companies that have a strong commercial focus and who can also have a technology that could be a dual use for the Air Force or DoD. So it's exciting work that we do, and I'm excited to go into it in more depth later, unless you want more details now.
Yeah, thanks, Camargue. I think we will do the questions that we will be able to discuss a lot more about the kind of in-depth, even the nuts and bolts to some degree. I'm going to shift over to Roxanne and ask you to do the same about the Hyperspace Challenge.
Sure. So Hyperspace Challenge focuses a little bit more just on the customer discovery piece of building relationships with the government. So what that means is we spend a lot of time focusing on finding customers within the government and helping identify and support startups that might have the right solutions to the problems those government customers are trying to solve. So a big part of our year is focused on picking a theme that we can, our first 2 years, our theme was geospatial data analytics, and then this past year was small satellites. We take a look at that theme, and then we share it across multiple government agencies. So we extend beyond the Air Force. We've worked in the past with the Army, IARPA, so the intelligence community, NASA, Navy, and we find different groups of people. Sometimes it's researchers, sometimes it's airmen who have challenges that they're trying to solve that fit within our theme. And then we curate those problems. We help work with those problem sponsors, help them understand some of the needs that startups have. So there needs to actually be hopefully someone who can buy the technology if we identify and find one. We need to have someone who's willing to come out to New Mexico and meet one-on-one with these companies and collaborate with them. And we oftentimes try and just look for folks within government who have, who think like innovators and who are open to working with startups, understand their needs to move quickly. So once we have those government customers in place, we go out and we look for startups that could potentially solve the problems that they've brought to the table. And we spend some time, we'll do webinars to share more information about those problems. We kind of very similar to Camargue, it could be national, it could be global, some of these solutions that we're looking for in some of these companies. Also similar is that we're looking for companies that hopefully have a commercial and government solution. So we're not trying to get companies to only work with government. Oftentimes we're looking for companies that maybe haven't worked with the government before. And so we spend a lot of the time once we do select companies in late summer, talking about how you interact with the government, how you talk to a government customer, how you understand some of their problems and needs, and the contracting process. And then we bring everyone together in New Mexico for several days where folks can meet one-on-one, like we said, collaborate, and then hopefully moving forward that these startups can get into a contract with these government customers. So that's the overarching view of the Hyperspace Challenge.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Roxanne. And I think what you said is that a lot of the tenets and principles between both Catalyst and Hyperspace, we're really sharing a lot of that with some more particular specifics between the two locations. I'm quickly going to give you a point of reference. So I am tracking the YouTube feed, and it's interesting because of the way the grid is reversed on the YouTube feed. So on the YouTube feed, I'm going to have Roger answer the next question. And if I look up, sort of like the Brady Bunch, if I look there, there's Roger is in that corner. So Roger, Captain Anderson, I think I went backwards in my questioning lineup, so I apologize for that. But you heard a little bit about the two specific accelerators. Can you tell us how those two sort of fit together into what we're calling this Overarching Space Accelerator Program?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it works well that we had the two individual accelerators go first, because now we can bring it all together here. So the Air Force Space Accelerator Program was something that we started looking into back in 2017 and did a trial run with Lightspeed Innovations of how do we engage the startup community? How do we engage the community that needs to move fast, where government traditionally does not move fast? So government can often move so slow that a startup will go out of business waiting for a contract to get signed by the government. So the question is how do we actually engage these companies? How do we embrace this move fast mentality with the companies we engage? And the accelerator was presented as one of these options to better engage the startup community and the small business community. And through these accelerators, we are trying to help the companies understand their ways into the government, pathways into the government, because usually, quite often, the people who are able to work with the government are the ones who already know how or have those experts, and without the person with the know-how to work with the government or the past experience, it presents a barrier to working with us. So the accelerator is meant to kind of tear down those barriers and build pathways into engaging the government. So we've heard from Catalyst Accelerator and Hyperspace Challenge how they're doing that. And I want to point out that one of the really big benefits that these accelerators is bringing to the startup world is the connections it makes for them. So Hyperspace Challenge mentioned that they go out and they try to pick a topic area and then reach across many different services, all the services and different government organizations to see who has pain points within this topic area and then present those to the community. Well, then we have people, these users with these pain points come out and interact with these startup companies through our accelerator, and it creates some really important communication, some mutual understanding of what the problems actually are and how that the startups can engage them. And then, as Kamar mentioned, a lot of the business development that they provide helps both accelerators provide helps the companies know how to engage the government, how to go about applying for a contract, where to search for contracts, and how to go throughout this whole process. And so it just really provides a lot of opportunities for new companies, startup companies, to figure out what are the opportunities working with the government, and where can they get involved, and what does the process look like? So I guess that's the big picture of the accelerator is really building pathways for startups to be able to effectively work with the government and get government contracts.
So I guess, Roger, this fits into a larger ecosystem of things happening across the government and in the commercial world. What trends are you now seeing in the commercial world as the Air Force and then now the Space Force too strives to work more closely with the startup community?
So yeah, we're definitely seeing some trends. First of all, as we employ these systems, these methods to better engage the startup community, we're seeing a lot more non-traditional companies come out and want to play with the government now and want to engage with us. And when I say non-traditional, I don't just mean the traditional very large government businesses, but also the small businesses. There's a lot of small businesses out there that are more traditionally government focused, but now we're able to cast a much wider net and capture a lot more of those companies that don't traditionally work with us. So we've seen a lot of companies come through our accelerators who have never worked with the government. So that's one of the trends that we're seeing is these companies that have never worked with the government now wanting to engage with us. And another trend that we're seeing is as we're able to much faster award contracts through the revamped SBIR program that the Air Force has been changing, making it easier and faster to get contracts through the SBIR program. We're seeing also venture capital firms wanting to engage with us more and understand what we're doing and come out to our events and our activities and see the companies that we're recruiting. So we're seeing a lot of these different trends where the government and the commercial sector and the VC firms are working much more closely together, and we anticipate this to continue to grow and for collaborations to continue to grow into the future. Another important trend that we're seeing is that a lot of the companies that we've been recruiting and discovering through the Accelerator program have gone on to win much bigger contracts. I don't know if they would have been able to win if they weren't able to first learn how to work with the government coming through these accelerators. For example, we recently had the Space Pitch Day event last November. And at that event, 9 of our alumni companies were able to secure phase 2 SBIR government contracts. And that would be at 9 out of 30. And then just yesterday, we learned that, or not yesterday, last Thursday, we had 3 more companies secure very large, very promising high dollar value phase 2 strategic phase 2 SBIR contracts. So we're very excited to see a lot of these companies that we're discovering using the accelerator going on and having more money and more individuals within or organizations within government starting to utilize them to address their needs.
Yeah, great. So like you said, there's been a lot of movement across the Air Force to do things faster, to find better ways to make awards, to match the pace that startups typically operate in, or other businesses that we might consider non-traditional. I guess, Roxanne, with that in mind, with all these things that the Air Force and now Space Force are sort of pioneering from the acquisition standpoint, do you think, from your background working mainly in the industry side, the startup side, startup sector, do these things seem to be working? If so, or if not, what's your opinion as to why they are not working?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, Gabe. They better be working. No. No, to your point, we spend a lot of time, our whole program was built around making sure that we're serving the needs of the startup community, because it's one thing to be a big, huge, enormous organization like the Air Force and try and dictate what it is that folks need. Really what we've seen instead is the Air Force really in a really impressive way, acknowledging the fact that, hey, we need to do some things differently. We need to open this door. We need to listen, and we need to work together to solve any issues that we've heard startups bringing to the table. And so some of them are the ones that Roger has alluded to along the lines of, the timelines, the difficulty of getting contracts with or getting connections within the government. Where do you even begin when you're working with organizations that are so large? Some of some of the initiatives that have been happening across AFWorks, the innovation branch of the Air Force, is definitely trickling to other DoD and government organizations as well. I think the great thing that we're hearing when we're talking to these startups is that first piece of getting in the door is a lot easier. Understanding where to go, whether it's finding these doorways that are things like the SIBR pitch days. That piece has been easier. Going to events like AFWorks, having the Air Force show up at places like Capital Factory and at Catalyst, where you actually know where to meet people, where to get some of your questions answered. All these things are enormous strides, I think, from where we were a few years ago. With that said, though, it opens new challenges. So I think some of the things that we're talking about with companies is, how do you get beyond that initial SIBR into your phase 2 or even further? Some of our companies are having success with that, but some of the things that we can continue to appreciate and understand and tinker with is how do we continue to coach and support the government side who's trying to move these startups along the process that is the government contracting? How do we support both sides when they're kind of navigating things that are changing and new? So we have a lot more startups that we're working with that are working with the government. And so that's just opening up new opportunities for where the pain points are, where we can make changes. So I think I'm very optimistic about the future. I know the companies that some of the ones we've worked with, they've come in, they hadn't worked with the government before. They actually have made their previous investors very happy in the sense that they're delaying looking for funding because they have such great traction with their government contracts. So the government can be a great customer. We're proving that and we're showing that message, but it's not a one phase process, so we will continue to iterate and push to make it better.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Roxanne. So, when we started this work, and by the way, I didn't start the work, neither did Roger. We had some other folks who were sort of the thought leaders that began this, more or less an experiment on using startup accelerators to help the Air Force better connect with the startup community, the non-traditional community. And as that program got rolling, right about the time I came on board is when really we worked with the Catalyst campus to stand up the Catalyst Space Accelerator. So really out of the gate, Camargue and her shop were the first main entities starting us down this road. So Camargue, you've worked at this point with 30 plus, I don't know how many you've actually worked with, but you've had a lot of companies now come through your operation. Can you tell us, is there, from that experience, are you starting to see any indications of traction with larger companies because of that work that we're doing, that the Air Force is doing in this regard?
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. We do have, with the current cohort, it's 38 companies, small businesses that are now engaged with the Air Force primarily. But we do have some of these companies that are about to transition stuff into the Army or other areas. And so it's super exciting to see what the kind of traction that these companies have gotten. And I do believe that it is attracting the attention of larger companies as well. We run a Sherpa program, and in our commercial Sherpa program, I couple these small companies that come through our accelerator with a larger company that wants to have a part in mentoring them and giving back to the community. And so in this current cohort, we have an 8-to-8 ratio. We have each company is assigned to a Sherpa, and each Sherpa then is mentoring and helping the smaller company to accelerate and make strides that they wouldn't have been able to make without some sort of a big brother, big sister type company that's taking them under their wing. So the larger companies are, I'm seeing, stepping up to that task. The Lockheed Martins, the GDs, the Ball Aerospace, some of those companies. Then I also see an interest growing with mediums. And the mediums are probably the ones that are more agile and more able to take on one of these companies as a partner And so we have mediums that are stepping up saying, hey, I want to be a Sherpa and I want to be involved with these companies. And so we have mediums like KSAT, or we have littler companies that are just wanting to be part of the ecosystem. So I think the good thing that the Air Force has started with these smalls is just catching on and spreading. And I think it's a great thing. And I have very little trouble finding companies that want to be involved with these cohort companies. Sometimes it doesn't take much talking on my part till they're like, okay, sign me up. I want to be part of this. And for each accelerator, since I've come on, we've also done a community planning day. And that's where I just invite subject matter experts within the community and say, hey, come and think through this accelerator with us so that we can offer these companies the very best programming that we possibly can. And I don't have any trouble getting people to come to that either. Our last one was a group of 23 people, and I was expecting 10. And so it just catches on, and people want to come and speak into the program and be able to, in some ways, advise the Air Force on what they need to do to help these companies, or what kind of a problem statement we need to have. And so just that kind of community collaboration and seeing it between government and the private sector, it's super exciting. And one of the reasons I absolutely love my job.
Awesome, Camargue, thanks. A quick point of reference is regarding kind of our streaming in our broadcast here. So it turns out I am able to see some of the comments that are being made on the YouTube channel. So that's awesome. That's encouraging to me. It's another sign that this thing is actually working. So I have a few questions that are coming in, and also if you're out there in virtual land, in YouTube land, or wherever you are watching this, because now I see that, go ahead and start asking, pop in questions to those comments if you want. And if we have time at the end, I'll be able to ask those, or I might be able to pepper them into the discussion here. There is a slight lag. I noticed that between what I'm actually saying now live and what you're seeing in YouTube land, there's probably a 30, 45 second delay of some sort. So if we don't get to the question right away, no worries. I'll do my best to integrate that in. Real quick, for both Camargue and for Roxanne, I wanted to comment on this. Roger mentioned earlier, for instance, that one of the things we were trying to do in the program, and one of the intents of this program has long been that we're not necessarily trying to create specific DoD vendors, right? We really want to use the accelerator concept in the method that it was originally conceived, which is to help companies grow fast in the commercial market. And so in some sense, that has a lot to do with how do they deal with, or how do they get involved with the venture capital community. Are you guys seeing, Camargue and Roxanne, how are you seeing the VC community participate or not participate in this? And I guess we'll start with Camargue.
I am excited about the VC community becoming more and more interested. It seems when I started, that was one of our gaps, is we're trying to get more VCs interested in what we're doing. And I feel like we've come a long ways since then. I have VCs that contact me. Even just this morning, I got an email saying, hey, I'd like to connect with you and learn more about Catalyst Accelerator. And these are VCs from all over the nation. And so that's exciting, and I like connecting with them. It's just my expectation has always been, well, they're going to come out here to Colorado Springs, meet all our companies, go to our demo day, and that doesn't always happen. So the nut I'm trying to crack is, how can I pull in all these VCs that are interested in the program and in these companies, and maximize their participation, maximize their value to the companies. And I'm still working on that, though I'm doing virtual introductions between companies and VCs all the time. And I got notification last week that one of our companies in the last accelerator was funded through Rise of the Seed Fund. And it was an exciting moment. I'm like, woo, and all I did was a virtual connection between the two. And so I'm excited to see that, and I'm excited to see the explosion. I'm just boy, I'm open to feedback on how we can maximize that piece of our program. So thanks for asking.
Awesome. Any comments, Roxanne?
Yeah, I think just to echo Kamar's, well, you know, what she's alluded to, we've kind of started looking at it as that we have a handful of VC connections who get it, like they'll, you know, they understand what we're trying to do. They understand the benefit of why a company might pursue working with the government, that there can be some money made there, that there are some great customers that you can get a hold of within the government. But then we have our other group of VCs who maybe have continue to carry some of the stereotypes about working with the government. And some of those stereotypes are fair. You know, we don't want to take a company that has been successful in the commercial market and totally drag them down a rabbit hole of working with the government if it's not the right fit, you know. And that's some of the anecdotes that you hear amongst the VC community is, you know, you're chasing after dollars that might not ever materialize. You might be, you know, running around trying to find one big government customer instead of focusing on multiple commercial customers. I think that something that I have found just impactful in my thinking recently is the, you know, great thing to look at is the Eric Schmidt article that he wrote an op-ed recently about how innovation in Silicon Valley and Silicon Valley as it exists today is only possible because government invested in Silicon Valley. And we kind of paint over that story a little bit that we think of the founder, that's the story we hear. We don't always think it's actually a lot of government money after World War II that helped allow these technologies to become what they are today. So in the space industry, I think there's definitely a bit more understanding that the government support has to happen to build a thriving commercial space market. And so that's, you know, the conversations that we're having with VCs are around that very idea that it has to kind of go hand in hand, this commercial and government collaboration to build the industry that we're hoping to have here in the US. So we're meeting lots of people, and some will be our early adopters and come to our events and meet with our startups and fund them and see the potential, and some they'll show up as these results keep playing out.
Yeah, awesome. Great, Roxanne, I appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and pipe in a few questions here. We'll start with Roger, but you know, Roger, one of the things, and maybe one of the points I'll make here is that part of the reason this has, that this seems to be working out so well right now is that we are really focused on the commercial space market. And the reason that we have a lot of traction, I think, or just interest right off the bat, is that the commercial space market is growing really fast, more so than other sectors perhaps the government is interested in, the Air Force is interested in. So obviously, one of our tenets is that we started this because we saw the rise in the commercial market, a lot of innovation happening in the commercial market, just for the own, you know, just for the typical way that our capitalist system works. A lot of progress, launch costs have gone down, making it a lot easier for the commercial, the commercial interest to get in the game in playing in space. And so what we have been trying to do through the accelerator is take advantage of that a little bit and figure out, can we leverage that a little bit more? So a question out from YouTube land, our good friend Pete Newell asked the question about, do you see, how is this working, Roger, in your mind, between software and hardware and the differences? You know, we have different themes, for instance, that we run around, we ask for pain points, but there does seem to be a difference. Is it easier, harder? What's your take on the difference between companies and the work that companies are doing that may be more hardware focused as opposed to software focused?
Sure. So we have ran themes in our accelerator, some of them more software focused and some of them more hardware focused. For space, typically, hardware does face some unique challenges, because for hardware to be accepted by a program in the future, typically the users of that technology want to see that it's space qualified, so that has flight heritage. It's actually flown in space before they're typically willing to actually utilize on a system. So that just creates this very difficult problem for many companies, which is I can't sell this to a customer until I get space, flight heritage, but I can't get money to get it a flight until I get a contract. So it becomes difficult to get that hardware into space sometimes and prove that it can survive the harsh environment of space and meet the requirements. That's a unique a problem that we do see with the hardware technologies. But that also presents the opportunity to overcome it with the commercial side, because on the commercial side, they don't necessarily have the very strict standards that the government and the Air Force is always looking for. Sometimes if a system survives a year, well, that was good enough, and we'll just it's a small satellite, we'll just replace it if it happens to die. So it's a lot that they're much more willing to accept that risk than the government is. So by having the commercial world help fund some of that hardware development, it really helps to get at the flight heritage and then in the future be able to transition over to a government system. On the software side, what's great about the software is it doesn't have necessarily all the very high initial cost to get started that hardware always has. And we are reaching out for hardware companies right now, or software companies. Right now, the Catalyst campus is doing the Data Fusion Accelerator, and we're trying to figure out, how do we help these companies prove their software technologies? And something unique we're doing this time around with the Data Fusion Accelerator is at the start of the accelerator, we actually provided each one of the companies some government data. So data that we have at the government about satellites that we want to provide to them, and then at the end of the accelerator, they have those 12 weeks over which they can take this data and show what their software is able to do and do for the government, and what they were able to learn from the data set that we provided them. So we're looking at both hardware and software and very interested in both sides. Each has their unique set of challenges, but we're trying to think about what these challenges are and address them as we go forward and continue to choose these focus areas and discover technologies.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll just tack on to that I think one of the other things that we don't have it necessarily nailed down yet, but we are experimenting with is how can the government step in cases where it's really hardware intensive, and you have to get that on orbit like you were saying, Roger. What can the government do to help a small company maybe get to orbit so that they can show some of that flight heritage? We don't have all the answers on that just yet, but we have used a few techniques to see if we could help companies out as they come through the accelerator. And it is hard. Hardware is hard for us. So in space in particular, it's really hard. So still working on it is the best answer I guess we have for that.
And Gabe, I also wanted to pipe in that the Air Force has also started to stand up these DevSecOps sites. So these software factories where the government's trying to get away from how they have in the past treated software more as hardware for the acquisition process and been very inefficient with the way that we actually produce software, where our software systems, don't have the flexibility into the contracting process and into the agreements to get what we actually need in the end, and that the DevSecOps process is and these sites we're standing up are really trying to address these. So some of these we have a space camp that's specific for space, and also Kobayashi Maru out at I think it's out at LA Air Force Base, out at LA Air Force Base. Those are both focused on space. Kessel Run is more so Air Force wide. So there's these sites out there that are trying to address the software side of the house too, as how do we change the way that the government procures software.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would say that as these various other programs stand up in that regard, part of what we're doing from at least the Space Accelerator program is trying to at least keep connected with those guys and figure out if there's a pipeline, an overarching pipeline that can be created from tech scouting through the accelerators all the way into those software factories that are more of an incubation phase. And another point I'll make is that our program, we're calling it the Air Force Space Accelerator Program. We really consider that officially part of AFWERX's overarching accelerator activity, which includes a few other accelerators that they're running. In fact, if I have enough time for the end, I'll quickly share a link, share the webpage that we've recently created. Thanks, Roxanne. Recently created to kind of consolidate the list of different accelerators that we're running throughout, just so you can get pointed to those. We're about 45 minutes into the hour that we had. And I think as an aside, unless I have created the YouTube and Zoom accounts, I'm not 100% certain about this, but I think I can stay on for a while. I know that within the agenda for the Innovation Discovery event itself, there's another activity following me right after. But if people stay online here, I don't know that it will fall right off. So we'll try to answer some of those questions or show you some stuff. I quickly wanted to ask Roxanne, well, it's for all three of you guys. We'll start with Roxanne, go to Camargue, and then Roger. Can you comment? There's another element of this program that I think is important to highlight, which is the cultural impact that it's having, both out in industry and within the government bureaucracy, if you will. So can you comment on that? We'll start with you, Roxanne.
Yeah, one thing that's been really exciting for us is, like we mentioned, working between different government organizations. And so when we bring everyone together, we're not just bringing together the startups only to meet with, the folks from NASA and IARPA and the Air Force Research Labs and the Air Force more broadly. All the folks on the government side get to meet one another and get to kind of think about, what is it, what is the meaning of how was your conversation with this startup? How do you actually plan on implementing, and getting one of these startups on contract? Luckily here in Albuquerque, we've been very fortunate in the sense that the Air Force Research Labs is really embodying this innovation and change. And so we're seeing new contracts coming out of the Air Force Research Labs that are allowing startups and our government customers to work together. When we bring people like the folks from NASA out here, they also get to meet with the Air Force contracting officers and learn about how we're actually getting people onto contracts more quickly. So the innovation really starts to snowball when you're able to show folks how we've leveraged some of these government tools to make an impact for our immediate purposes, but also, here's some tricks of the trade that you can take back to your contracting officers all over the country and go from there. So the great part is that when we start with folks that are open to this innovation, they're also open to taking new ideas home with them when they leave. So that's been a really promising aspect of what we've seen coming out of Hyperspace Challenge.
Yeah, great. I guess, who did I say was next, Roger?
I think you said Camargue was next.
Okay, Camargue, go ahead.
Either one, doesn't matter. I like what Roxanne said. That's an exciting part of it. And that's an exciting part of Hyperspace Challenge is that you bring all the DoD and they're all together in the room at the same time, where we have them come almost one at a time. And so there's not that type of an interaction, which I'm wondering if we can change that. We might want to integrate that a little bit. But what I do see, though, is that once the DoD comes, whoever we have, they get excited about the program. And we are often hearing the comment, well, we had no idea this was going on, or how exciting this is, and can I be a part of the next one? And so it's something that's growing and changing, and it's exciting to be a part of it. And I know that I would need more than just my hands to count how many people have wanted to stay involved with the program because they came and actually sat face to face with these companies and heard about the exciting things going on. So I think that is changing maybe slowly on the DoD side of the culture question. And when I talk to companies, there's been numerous companies that have gone through our accelerator that have flat out said, I never, ever thought I would work with the government, ever. And so here they are sitting in the chair, and you're just like, well, what are you doing here? Because this is what this is all about. But the comments we've gotten back from these companies who now are, operating on lots of money that they've been able to secure through SBIR programs and that kind of thing. And they're just kicking butt, so to speak, on that side of it. And they've expanded their market, their footprint. And so I think on the company side, on the commercial side, culture is changing as they're finding more avenues to work with the government and an easier route to go to work with the government as well. So I think the entry point is changing hearts and minds, and I hope that the further they get inside of working with the government, that continues to be an easy thing for them. From the surveys we've done, it has been so far. And so I just hope that continues, and as the DoD continues to change and try new ideas, and of course being led by the Air Force's innovative mind and the willingness to take risks, I'm looking forward to what kind of changes we'll see even as we move forward.
Awesome, Camargue, thanks for that. Roger, how is this affecting our internal culture?
Right. So Camargue and Roxanne, they've kind of addressed that culture is being changed by exposure and experience. So exposure to these programs, to this willingness to do new things with what we're doing in the Air Force Space Accelerator program, and what AFWERX is doing, what Air Force Ventures is doing, all these different areas of things that are happening. It's by exposing people to it and helping them see that we are trying to modernize and change the way that we do business. And within internal to the Air Force, we're trying to push these same things. So something that we run in parallel with the Air Force Space Accelerator program is a professional development program, where we take young military officers, so lieutenants and captains, and then civilian equivalents who are doing acquisitions, and have them work with us for 6 months or 6 months to a year. And that way they're exposed to these new thoughts, these new methodologies, and understand that there's ways to do government acquisitions outside the traditional process. That's still within what our regulations allow. So by exposing them to this, they're able to understand and see these opportunities from a very young age, and be able to take their experience and have it influence their organizations, and bring these thoughts into traditional acquisitions. And so we're hearing things like Camargue said, people saying, this is so amazing that you're able to bring this many companies all together, and a lot of these users, they just have to come out to the demo day, and they're suddenly exposed to 8 to 10 different companies in a single day, and they get to have these interactions and understand opportunities where they can mutually develop technology. So it's really through the professional development program that we run, and by the exposure and bringing people out and giving them the experience of non-traditional government acquisitions, it's really helping to drive that culture change.
Awesome, thanks, Roger. So as we get close to the hour, I have one more question. There's a few more questions. I don't think I'm gonna get to them all, but one more question that I'll go ahead and field just for the sake of time, so that we can close out the actual hour. And then if people want to stay on with us for a little bit, I'll do that. There's a question about, small companies. We get this question a lot. How does a non-traditional interact better perhaps with the Air Force, the new Air Force SBIR program? And I guess my comment here is that early on, we were, through this program, experimenting with how to connect the SBIR process, the new process that was developing, to more or less the back end of these accelerators. And we went through different machinations on how to do that. Some of them were successful, and maybe some were less successful. But I think now what's really happening is, as this new SBIR process with the Air Force has crystallized, there's a little bit more formality into how to go to apply. The Air Force, the AFWERX guys in particular, have created this generic open topic that seems to be the new topic from now on, every cycle that you'll see. And so what we do through the accelerators at this point in time is we encourage them to look at that open topic and make sure that they're exposed to the fact that that exists, and then enable them to apply. I think the big nugget they get out of their accelerators is that as they work with our internal Air Force and other DoD customer base stakeholders, part of what they get out of that interaction is the potential to at least ask that customer if they're providing a product or service that this internal Air Force customer likes, would that customer be willing to, write them these MOAs that AFWorks is asking for, be a sponsor basically for them to get into the SBIR process. So that SBIR process is not exclusive to us by any means, but the one thing that we're doing to help is just to expose them to the fact that process exists and to these customers that process exists as well. So I hope that answered the question a little bit. Let me see. I guess as we close out the hour, yeah, so maybe this actually kind of goes back to that question as well. Do you guys, this is for all three of you, and I'll just let you jump in and start talking over each other if you want. Any advice to startup companies that might want to engage with the Air Force?
Well, I think we should show them the Accelerator website, first of all, the Air Force Accelerator website, so they know of all the opportunities that are out there. So that's one way to see the Accelerator opportunities. And I can't stress how important it is, the networking side of the house, just understanding your user, figuring out what is it that your user wants. So often companies will go out and they'll, might start designing a problem, trying to think themselves what the user might want, but it's so much more effective to actually be able to engage with the user and have a conversation with them. So and that way you can, this is what our technology might be able to do, and the user can let you know, well, that's great, but what we really need is this, and you're really close, but not quite there. So having those conversations and networking and taking advantage of the different opportunities that are being presented through the accelerators or through AFWorks. If you get a phase one, you can go to the Collider events that help you meet a lot of different users that AFWorks puts on. So really take advantage of these networking opportunities to try to understand what the needs of your users are. Yeah,
thanks, Roger. I got the page, so hopefully that's coming through the feed. And at the top is really just the quick website address that you can get to. In that website, we basically have listed all of the currently running accelerators, not just focused on space. And that's another way to just kind of keep tabs on what's going on, maybe how to get involved. And I guess our intent to some degree is as other accelerators perhaps become available through more or less the Air Force and AFWorks programming, we'll try to add those here as well. I guess Camargue or Roxanne, anything else to add to that?
No, I think it's a good start is to go to the website because it links to any of the accelerators that you might be interested in. So I think it's a great start. And we've had several companies that have applied to our accelerator a couple of times and just haven't quite found the right fit yet. And then we've got a topic that comes along that's a perfect fit for them. So I'd just say don't give up. Just try different avenues, try different areas. And if you want to work with the government, I think there could be an open door for you if you just push through.
Yeah, thanks, Camargue. I guess with that, I'm gonna call this. I'm gonna use my hand. Chop chop. This is the official end of the hour. If you're tuning into the larger innovation resiliency workshop sessions, I'll stay on for a few minutes to monitor the YouTube channel just to see if there are any more questions. But I appreciate, so thank you panel. Thanks Roxanne, thanks Roger, thanks Camargue for joining me. Really appreciate that in this experiment. I'm happy to see it looks like it works. So, hey, that's my early indicator of a measure of success. Wait, we actually pulled it off. And I guess have a happy coronavirus-free day. Please stay safe. All right, let's see. I think I got most of the questions there for you. So you guys, so thanks for joining me. I'm gonna stand by for a few seconds to see if there's any more questions that pop up. What I don't know is, since this is the first time I've done this, do I even have access to control what I can see or not see on the YouTube? And does it cut off automatically? So I don't think it does.
I don't think so. I just pulled it up and I think we're still casting.
Awesome. I did also quickly wanted to do this. So while I wait for maybe any more questions, so like I said, there's a delay. So I took the website down. It should show our 4-person grid now. And just for fun, I'm going to try to figure out within the YouTube feed where you guys actually sit relative to me and the Brady Bunch grid. So Roger is this way, or is it this
Yes.
way?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm pointing the right way, right?
Yeah, you're pointing right at me.
Okay. And then Roxanne is above me. Roxanne's above me. And Camargue is that way. That way. I was just curious. That's just
I don't have that. No.
Okay. Well, we're still casting live on the YouTube. I'm gonna answer.
I don't mind.
Since I
question.
pulled it up. If you want to get more involved with Hyperspace Challenge, email contact@hyperspacechallenge.com or visit any of the websites. British companies generally are eligible, but Roger would be a better person to answer that. I mean, but we've worked with British companies before in the past.
So yeah, we would absolutely be interested in talking with you. I mean, I think it's important that we expand our vision a little bit and not just look at the development that's happening in the U.S., but really be aware of everything that's happening, because I think we're cutting ourselves short if we're only focusing on the R&D and the cutting edge technologies that are happening within the U.S. So yes, we'd absolutely be interested in talking with you.
Oh, that was actually going to be the Easter egg, right? I asked at the beginning, what was the maps behind each of you doing? And those maps are that, right? We are not necessarily intending for this to be US only. We are looking for to connect to the international community as well. So well said, Roger. And by the way, there'll be other accelerators. If you watch that page or just watch the AppWorks page, you might be able to see that we know that there are some things in the offing that aren't ready for public consumption yet, but there are things in the offing that are more geared toward the international market. So just keep the website in mind. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to you guys. I'm going to cut us off live.